June 5, 1944. Across southern England, the night felt heavier than usual. Clouds pressed low over the countryside. Wind bent the hedgerows. Rain tapped against canvas tents and steel helmets. And in fields, villages, forests, and airfields, hundreds of thousands of American soldiers waited in silence. They were farmers from Kansas, dock workers from New York, miners from Pennsylvania, students, mechanics, clerks, sons of immigrants who spoke English with accents from Italy, Poland, Ireland. They were the United States Army, and by dawn they would attempt the largest invasion in human history. For years, Nazi Germany had dominated Europe. Poland had fallen in weeks, France in 6, Britain stood alone for a time, and in the East, the Soviet Union fought a war so vast and brutal that entire cities disappeared into ash. The Allies knew that Germany could not be defeated from the air alone, nor from distant fronts. To destroy Hitler's empire, they had to land in Europe itself. That meant crossing the English Channel and breaking through Hitler's Atlantic Wall. The invasion had been planned for years. Thousands of ships assembled, millions of tons of equipment gathered. Soldiers trained endlessly on mock beaches, maps memorized, obstacles studied, assault rehearsed again and again. Still, no training could truly prepare men for what waited across the water. Machine guns in concrete bunkers, artillery zeroed on the surf, mines buried in sand, and defenders who had spent years fortifying every approach. On the night before the invasion, the order finally came. They would go. Just after midnight on June 6th, the first Americans crossed into France not by sea, but from the sky. Hundreds of transport planes roared over the English Channel, carrying the paratroopers of the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions. Inside each aircraft, red lights glowed dimly over rows of heavily burdened men. Their gear weighed nearly as much as they did. Rifles, ammunition, grenades, radios, explosives, rations, medical kits. Many could barely stand upright. The planes shook violently in turbulence. Anti-aircraft fire burst around them in black clouds. Tracer rounds streaked upward. Pilots veered to avoid flak, breaking formations. Navigation lights vanished in cloud and smoke. Some aircraft flew too low, others too fast, others miles off course. Then the jump lights turned green. Men stepped into darkness. Almost immediately, the airborne assault descended into chaos. Strong winds scattered paratroopers across miles of countryside. Units broke apart. Officers landed alone. Radios vanished. Many soldiers plunged into flooded fields and drowned beneath their gear. Others fell directly into German positions and were shot before they could free themselves from parachutes tangled in trees. Some landed in swamps, trapped and helpless in rising water. By every measure of planning, the airborne drop had failed. Yet in that failure lay unexpected success. Instead of organized battalions, small groups of American paratroopers formed wherever they landed. Strangers gathered in the dark, following whoever seemed to know the way. Lieutenants led privates from other companies. Sergeants commanded ad hoc squads. Missions shifted from precise objectives to simple aggression. Attack anything German, block roads, seize bridges, create confusion. And confusion spread quickly through the German rear areas. Reports flooded command posts of parachutists everywhere. Dozens of drops, hundreds of drops, entire divisions landing at once. German officers could not tell truth from rumor. Reinforcements moved in the wrong directions. Communications tangled. Units froze, waiting for orders that never came. The scattered American paratroopers, lost and disorganized, had unintentionally created exactly the chaos the invasion needed. While they fought in darkness inland, the sea invasion approached the coast. Before dawn, thousands of ships crowded the channel. Battleships, cruisers, destroyers, transports, landing craft, an armada unlike anything in history. Waves crashed against steel hulls. Spray-soaked soldiers packed shoulder to shoulder inside landing craft. Many had never been at sea. They vomited from sickness and fear. Water pooled around boots. Engines roared. Officers shouted over the noise. No one could hear clearly. Ahead lay Normandy. The U.S. Army would strike two beaches, Utah to the west, Omaha to the east. At Utah Beach, the 4th Infantry Division approached shore through rough seas and heavy current. Navigation errors and tides pushed the invasion force more than a mile south of its planned landing zone. For an amphibious assault, landing in the wrong place could mean catastrophe. But in this case, it meant survival. The unintended sector was less heavily defended than expected. German positions were thinner, artillery coverage weaker, obstacles fewer. When the first American ramps dropped into surf, soldiers splashed into chest-deep water under sporadic fire rather than the storm of bullets planners had feared. Still, men died, mines exploded, machine guns snapped, but units remained cohesive. Officers survived the first waves. Movement inland began quickly. Among the first ashore was Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., the oldest man in the invasion force and son of a former president. Walking with a cane yet calm under fire, he surveyed the terrain and realized the landing error. Instead of redirecting troops toward the original sector, which would have meant crossing defended ground under fire, he made a decisive choice.
We'll start the war from right here.
The decision stabilized the entire beachhead. American troops pushed inland, linked with airborne units nearby, and broke through German defenses within hours. Utah Beach became the most successful landing of D-Day. But to the east, another American force met something very different: Omaha Beach. Here the coastline rose sharply into bluffs overlooking the surf. German engineers had spent years fortifying the heights with bunkers, trenches, artillery positions, and interlocking machine gun nests. Every approach lane was pre-registered for fire. Obstacles filled the tidal zone: steel hedgehogs, wooden stakes, mines fixed to posts, designed to rip open landing craft or drown infantry in surf. The U.S. 1st and 29th Infantry Divisions approached this coast through rougher seas than expected. Many landing craft drifted off course. Amphibious tanks meant to provide fire support launched too far offshore and sank in waves. Naval bombardment had missed many German positions, leaving defenses largely intact. At 6:30 in the morning, the first American ramps dropped, and Omaha Beach erupted in slaughter. Machine guns swept the surf. Artillery shells burst among packed soldiers. Mortars fell into clusters of men struggling through water. Landing craft exploded on mines or direct hits. Units disintegrated instantly. Officers died in seconds. Men dropped beneath waves, weighed down by equipment. Bodies washed back and forth in surf-stained red. Those who reached the sand found no safety. The beach offered almost no cover, only shallow shingle ridges and scattered obstacles. German fire came from above at plunging angles. Soldiers flattened behind anything. Corpses, debris, twisted steel, radios lost, leaders dead, orders impossible. Entire companies ceased to exist within minutes. By every expectation, the Omaha landing should have failed. But once again, something unexpected happened. Small groups of American soldiers began moving. No coordinated command, no planned assault waves, just individuals and fragments of squads inching forward under fire. They crawled through sand, used shell craters as cover, cut wire with clippers, threw grenades blindly uphill. Engineers blasted gaps and obstacles. Riflemen climbed gullies and draws in the bluffs. Snipers and machine gun teams found angles of fire against bunkers. Leadership shifted downward. When officers died, sergeants led. When sergeants fell, corporals led. When corporals vanished, privates decided to go forward anyway. At Omaha, the invasion survived not because of plan, but because of countless personal decisions to keep moving. By late morning, scattered American groups reached the top of the bluffs. From behind, they attacked German positions that had dominated the beach for hours. Bunkers were taken one by one. Machine gun nests silenced. Defenders isolated. Resistance collapsed unevenly but steadily. By afternoon, Omaha Beach, scene of near catastrophe, became a secured foothold in France. But the cost was terrible. More than 2,000 American casualties in a single morning. While Omaha fought for survival, another U.S. Army force attempted one of the most daring assaults of the entire war. The 2nd Ranger Battalion approached Pointe du Hoc, a rocky promontory between Omaha and Utah beaches. German heavy guns positioned there could fire on both invasion zones. The Rangers' mission was simple in wording, impossible in execution: scale 100-foot cliffs under fire and destroy the artillery. Landing craft neared the base of the cliffs as German defenders hurled grenades and fired downward. Waves smashed boats against rock. Ropes were thrown upward, grappling hooks catching on edges. Ladders mounted on rockets fired toward the top. Men began climbing, exposed, vertical, helpless targets. Many fell. Ropes were cut. Climbers shot mid-ascent. Others drowned when boats capsized. Still, enough Rangers reached the top to seize the position after brutal close combat. But when they reached the gun emplacements, they discovered something shocking. The large artillery pieces were gone. German forces had moved them inland before the invasion. The Rangers searched desperately across fields and hedgerows. Finally, patrols located the guns hidden in orchards nearby. Without waiting for orders, they destroyed them using thermite grenades and explosives, eliminating the threat to both beaches. The Rangers then held their exposed position for 2 days against repeated counterattacks, isolated and outnumbered, until relief arrived. Of the 225 Rangers who landed, fewer than 100 could still fight. Across Normandy that day, American airborne troops continued their scattered battles. Small groups seized bridges, blocked roads, ambushed columns, and held villages against German counterattacks. Though disorganized, they achieved their purpose, delaying reinforcements from reaching the beaches during the critical first hours. By nightfall on June 6, 1944, more than 150,000 Allied troops, many of them American, stood on French soil. The Atlantic Wall had been breached. The cost was immense. Thousands dead, wounded, or missing in a single day. Beaches littered with wreckage and bodies. Units shattered. Friends lost. Entire lives ended before noon. Yet the foothold held. And from that foothold would come the liberation of Western Europe. The United States Army had crossed the sea, climbed the cliffs, fought through the surf, and taken the shore. The longest day had ended, and the road to Berlin had begun.